Hi everybody, it's Az here from HeelvsBabyface on the live servers for Warlords of Draenor in Blackrock Foundry. The freshly opened up raid opened up on Tuesday for America and the Oceanics, and yesterday for us in Europe. Now, speaking of yesterday, I brought you the LFR version of the Blast Furnace fight. Now, after we finished our raid last night, we defeated 5 out of the 10 bosses on normal to start with, which was a decent start for us. We're pretty happy with that. We noticed that a lot of guilds were actually having issues with the Blast Furnace. One of the fights we decided to concentrate on and defeat. Now, it took us 6 attempts to do this. We had 5 wipes while we worked certain things out. But this is how we did the Blast Furnace. Fingers crossed, might be able to actually help some of the struggling guilds out there. Number 1, we actually concentrate on the bellow operators. Now, these are the guys which take control of the heat regulators on either side of the Blast Furnace. These are what you have to defeat in Phase 1 to push into Phase 2, the heat regulators. So these guys, they actually have an ability called loading, where they increase the heat of the furnace by 2, which means that the blasts which come from the furnace, which deal 93k damage to all the raid, start to come quicker and quicker. So we literally assign somebody to either side. It's me on the right hand side, it's the other warlock on the left hand side, the hunters chip in every now and again, and also the melees, when they're not dealing with the ads, also have a quick little smack at the bellow operators as well. Don't neglect them, don't leave them for Phase 2, otherwise you're going to get overwhelmed by them and it's going to be an absolute disaster. So the other ads that you need to concentrate on, well, the melees were concentrating predominantly on the furnace engineers. So the furnace engineers, they do an electrocution attack, which will hit you for 28k. If you're within 5 yards of 2 other targets, it'll also pass on to them as well. So just be careful about where you are, especially if you're ranged and you get targeted. They also try and repair the regulators on the side of the furnace for 2% of its maximum health. That can easily be interrupted, so do interrupt it. Very important that you do. They put the bombs on people, of course, where you go and you detonate them by the regulators to destroy them. And when they die, they have a lit bomb bag, literally a bag full of bombs. You right-click it to empty it out. You all get a bomb, run to the regulators, blow up the regulators. That's the way to do it. The security guards, of course, come in with a defense ability, and they put a shield on the ground which stops people from taking damage. They take literally 0 damage. And they'll also have the Slay Elemental ability, which will come into play shortly in Phase 2. And then Foreman, Mr. Feldspar, does his Pyroclasm attack, which will hit for 58k, interruptible, interrupt it. He'll have his Rupture, which are the pools on the floor there. Don't step in them, they tick for 46.5k damage every second. And then he's got his Hot-Blooded, where he literally just pulsates AoE damage. And now we've pushed ourselves into Phase 2. First things first though, before we even go into the tactics of Phase 2, a couple of things that you need to do. Number 1, get rid of the bellow operators that are still in the fight. Now, because we managed them so well in Phase 1, we only had 1 on each side when we went into Phase 2, and they were both damaged as well. So it's not going to take too long for us to get rid of them. If you don't take care of the bellow operators in Phase 1, then what happens is when you go into the next phase, you've suddenly got 2 on either side, that's 4, or you could have 3 on either side, that's 6, and it's just going to be a wipe. That's pretty much guaranteed there. Also, get rid of the engineers that are in the fight as well, because once the bellow operators and the engineers have all been killed in Phase 2, they will now no longer spawn back into the fight. There are 2 enemies which have been permanently got rid of. So, with that done, what do we need to do in Phase 2? Well, we need to defeat these guys, the Primal Elementalists, which have the Heart of the Mountain locked into place, and there's 4 of them. And we're going to start off on the right-hand side and make our way over to the left-hand side. So we've absolutely marked out which Primal Elementalists we're going to defeat. What do? Well, first up, they have a damage shield on them, which makes them immune to all incoming damage. And when you do get the shield off, they'll try and do a reactive earth shield, which will heal them for a substantial amount after 8 seconds. Now, that reactive earth shield is dispellable, or you can spell steal it. So mages, if you spell steal it, you'll get yourself a beautiful heal, which will obviously take a bit of the pressure off your current healers. So how do we get rid of the damage shield, which makes them immune to all damage? It's these guys, the slag elementals, which are running around the place. They will fixate onto a target. If you are a fixated subject, run and place it by the primal elementalists, which you're going to defeat next. When you do that, burn it down to 1 health. It won't go past 1 health. When it gets to 1 health, it will detonate and deal 116k damage to all of the players within 8 yards. So just be careful when it's about to go down to 1 health. And it will remove the shield from the primal elementalists, making it vulnerable and allowing you to attack it. When it dies, though, it doesn't die. It just goes dormant. And every time the furnace does its blast ability, which is still hitting for 93k damage in phase 2, it will gain 20 energy back. When it goes to 100 energy, it will get back into the fight. So it only stays dormant for a certain period of time. It'll also try and do a burn ability when they're running around the place as well, which will deal 35k damage to its target. It is interruptible, so interrupt it. Security guards are still here. They'll do the defense ability. You can see the shield on the ground with the purple animation spinning around. If anything's caught in there for the enemies, then they'll basically take no damage. So make sure that they're moved out. But we have our off tank controlling them away from the fight. But they'll also do a slay elemental ability. Why? I do not know, but we'll thank them later. Which removes any of the protections from the slag elementals and makes them more susceptible to damage by 50% for 20 seconds. So allow you to destroy the slag elementals a lot quicker. Cheers, guys. And then our final ad is the fire callers. Now, they'll cauterize wounds, which means they will heal up one of their allies for 10% of their health. It's interruptible. Interrupt it. They're also CCable as well. Then they have a lava burst, which will hit a random target for 64k. Again, interruptible. Interrupt it. They'll deal volatile fire, which affects a target. They'll place a seed in that target, and after 12 seconds it will explode for 83k damage to all players within 8 yards. So if you are infected by the seed, stand away from the rest of your raiders, let it explode, and you only take the damage. And then finally, they'll deal an erupt ability where they place some lava at the feet of these slag elementals, and when it goes off, it will actually revitalize them. It will give them all their energy back. Deal with all of those, defeat the 4 primal elementalists, and this is what we get now, phase 3. So just like the transition from phase 1 to phase 2, couple of things that you need to do first before it's full concentration on the heart of the mountain. Any security guards that are still up, defeat them. Melee seem to take care of them. Any fire callers that are still up, defeat them. If you do that, those 2 people will now no longer spawn into the fight. The slag elementals, however, will stay into the fight. So what goes on in phase 3? Well, the heart of the mountain will do the blast ability instead of the furnace, which again still deals 93k damage to the whole of the raid. And then we'll have this melt ability that you can see on me. Now, the melt ability, when it's applied to you, will tick down a few seconds before it applies. And it drops this big pile of goo on the floor. Now, that will deal 58k damage every second if you stand in it. And it starts off small first and then starts to expand until it gets to a certain size and then stops. Now, you notice that I'm moving away from the raid to dump these melts as far away from them as possible. Sadly, though, the tanks have had to move heart of the mountain, so I'm having to reposition myself completely from scratch. Now, this is where the big thing comes in, and the big thing here is for you guys tanking, because you'll have 2 nasty abilities to juggle here. You'll notice our tanks have a couple of debuffs on them. They are heat and tempered. Now, heat will deal 23k damage every second for each application of it. It stacks. And then the tempered ability will increase the damage taken from heat if you have more stacks of heat than you do tempered. So if your heat is higher than your tempered, your damage levels are just going to start going through the roof. If you have more tempered than heat, then the efficiency of the heat won't get any higher. It will just tick how it normally was. 23k if it's 1 stack, 46k if it's 2 stacks, etc, etc. The slag elementals will not go away. So you can either choose to ignore them and just allow them to try and hit, interrupt where you can, or you can knock them out into their dormant state. So they will go into their dormant state, but the blast ability from the heart of the mountain will give it 20 energy back, and then 40, 60, 80 they will come back into the fight eventually. But there you go. If you pop your Bloodlust or your Hero or your Drums or your Time Warp, you should be able to get the Heart of the Mountain down in that 3rd phase. So there you go. That was the Blast Furnace normal difficulty. Felt like heroic. Normal difficulty kill. I hope you enjoyed the vid. If you did, please do give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel. Follow me on social media as well as twitch.tv for live streaming. Those links are in the description down below. And I'll be back with some more stuff very soon. You take care, everybody. Bye-bye.